Hello engineers, welcome to another video on low-level design. In this video, let's try to understand what is UML, the Unified Modeling Language, why it exists, and what are the different types of diagrams that we can do with UML, right? I hope you're ready. Let's get started. So before we get into the different types of diagrams that are possible in UML, let's try to understand why this UML exists in the first place, right? So let's say you have some amazing product idea. Let's say you went to your paper sketch and you did some sketching. Let's say you got a brilliant idea to do a new watch or a new bag, let's say, or something else, and you made a pencil sketch like this, right? But these sketches, although they are looking great, they are not very useful for the manufacturer, right? The manufacturer needs specifications, the width and the height and the length and things like that. And if you have ever done engineering drawing, you know that big long drafter we need to carry and to make lateral view, top view, bottom view, and different types of view with very specific dimensions and details, right? So that kind of drawing is a universally accepted standard for making industrial design or industrial engineering. In the same way, to make software design, we have this concept called Unified Modeling Language. It's a language in itself, which means that there are some rules that we need to follow in order to communicate using this language. And if we are following the notations that are prescribed in this language, we will be easily able to communicate to any software company or anyone who is trying to understand system design or software design in a meaningful way and an easy way, because the notations are already familiar, the language is already out there since decades, and everybody knows this language, right? That's why it's important that there is a common language for software system design, and that is the Unified Modeling Language. And in the UML, there are a bunch of diagrams. There are structural diagrams and then there are behavioral diagrams. I have listed down some of the popular diagrams that we generally use and see, and there can be many more diagrams like this inside UML. So let me walk you through the purpose of each of these diagrams and see why we need different diagrams, right? So every diagram has some kind of a purpose. It gives a different view of the software system design. It gives a different detail to some different aspect of the software system design. And every diagram has its own meaning, right? For example, if I talk about a structural UML, there is the component diagram. This diagram only shows the high level components. Without specifying much details, it just lays out the high level components and the dependencies and interfaces between the components. So that's all there is. It does not go into the detail. And then we have the class diagram. Very detailed. It has all the classes, and every class has its properties and methods and the dependencies between classes, the relationships, the inheritance, the association, the aggregation, composition, and things like that. Everything is very detailed in this diagram. So this is like a clear blueprint of the code itself, right? And then we have the object diagram. So this represents the code at a point in time. So if you want to see how the entire system is behaving when certain inputs are given to the system, we make use of the object diagrams. So in class diagrams, we define the specification. In the object diagrams, we can put in the values to the variables and see how the system will behave, what are the methods giving outputs as, and things like that. So it has a different view altogether. And then we have the deployment diagram, where we talk about where to deploy stuff and what are the different deployment things that we need to build this system. So it talks about the different containers. It talks about server client relationships. It talks about the network calls and things like that. So this is from a deployment perspective. So that's the purpose of a deployment diagram. And then if we come to the behavioral diagrams, first we have the use case diagram. This answers the why of the system. This talks about who are the actors and what are they trying to solve by using this system. What are the use cases they're trying to achieve and in which order they are trying to achieve. Who are the actors involved in achieving those things. So that is the use case diagram. And if we talk about the sequence diagram, it gives a timeline. So if we want to see the timeline of any activity, step 1, what's happening, after that what is happening, after that what is happening. If we want to see a timeline view of a particular use case, we can make use of a sequence diagram. And then we have the activity diagram. Activity diagram is like a flow chart. This is like an algorithm design. We follow the sequence of steps in which a particular task is achieved. Here we can have the decision points, the diamonds which take different routes, and then we can do merging and forking and things like that. So it is used for showing a flow of any particular activity, right? And then we have the state diagram, which talks about the life cycle of anything in the system design. So if we have ever used Jira or UTrack or any other ticketing tool like that, we know that if we get a ticket as a developer, we get it in the backlog, we put it in to do, it goes into progress, and then it goes into review, and then it goes into merge, and then finally testing, and then done, right? Something like that. So the ticket goes into several states. And this type of diagram can be useful to represent those states. If there are any approval steps required in between, we can show those different states as well. So that is the purpose of a state diagram. So are these the only diagrams? The answer is no. There are many other diagrams. UML is quite a vast language. And if you're really interested to learn everything about UML, I will put down some material in the description below so that you can check them out. But for our low level design learning purposes, I think we need to focus on three main diagrams, which we will cover in this playlist. First is the use case diagram, which will answer the why of the problem. So if we take an example, let's say we are trying to solve Uber as a low level design problem. What is the use case that we are trying to cover? Let's say we are trying to cover the use case of booking a trip. So that is a why. So we will take a look at this diagram and see who are the actors involved, the rider and the driver, and what are the steps involved in booking a trip, right? And then we will do a sequence diagram. This is where we will see how the timeline is happening. What are the things required in making a booking, and what is the timeline in achieving that booking? So first the driver requests a booking, and then there is an algorithm that runs to choose the nearby driver, and then there is a pricing strategy to choose the best pricing strategy for that particular trip. And then we have the driver assigned, and then the driver arrives at the location, and then the rider gives the driver an OTP, and then the trip is verified and the trip is on the way. So this type of timeline is useful to understand the use case in a better way. So the use case diagram is useful in deriving the functional requirements, and the sequence diagram is helpful in understanding the flow of the application. And we can also naturally derive the different type of components that we need. And then with those components, we can go deeper into the class diagram. This is where we will finalize our entire blueprint of our system. So I think these three diagrams are useful, are fundamental to achieve any low-level design problem. So if you still need help with any other diagram in understanding, let me know in the comment below. I will try to add a video on that diagram as well, right? So with that introduction, let's get into UML diagramming from the next videos. We will start with the use case diagram. Okay, thank you so much for watching, guys. I will quickly see you in the next one. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't done already. Thank you so much for watching. Cheers.